Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the final episode of that Milan podcast for 2025. We appreciate all of you so much and the support. Martino Puccio, Matt Santangelo alongside you guys. Before we get into the show today, just want to extend gratitude once again, like we pretty much do every episode. But anyways, it is the final one of 2025. We were able to sit down and record this. It won't be too long of a podcast, so at least some content for you guys to enjoy. Again, 5 stars on Apple, Spotify. It's a huge boost to us. Please like the video. And if you are a subscriber, please comment. Give us your thoughts on everything regarding Milan. It really doesn't matter. Guests that you want on in the future for 2026 and so on and so forth. Hoping to have more live streams as well. So I will be going live at the very least. Matt, it's always a little bit up in the air. This match is on Friday this week, a little bit different. But yeah, we immensely appreciate all the support. Instagram's doing great. Matt's really starting to get in a groove of things. But yeah, how are you doing? Have you seen any of the new movies lately? Are you going to catch Marty Supreme or no?
I might be seeing Avatar later on, which is cool. I remember the earlier ones being pretty enjoyable and pretty kind of cutting edge, the way they were kind of shot and all the effects and all that stuff. But that was years ago. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, we'll see how it is. When it comes to movies, I don't go there too much, but yeah, I've heard some good stuff about the movie, obviously, and I know Marty Supreme is a big talking point right now amongst millennials and all that stuff because of
Everybody.
the video he was in. He came and did like a rap verse and stuff. So yeah, no, it's a good time to kind of go to the movies and kind of take a little break from the football season.
Yeah, Chalamet is one of a kind. I'm hoping to see it sometime this week. Avatar, I don't really have much interest in. I was invited to go see it, but I just didn't end up doing that. But I got to see One Battle After of Another too. But a lot to catch up on the film side of things, and then Stranger Things wraps up tomorrow night. So again, pretty big stuff on the media, TV, movie side of
Right.
things. But for us, it's Milan, Verona. We already did a live stream on this, so we recapped it a little bit. We were both tired, that's for sure, on the stream looking back on some of the stuff. But ultimately, another smooth win. I was on the Milan Zone live stream podcast yesterday with Stefano, who obviously was on the channel a couple weeks ago. So it was great to just really chat it up with him. So guys, go and check that out if you have not already. But yeah, Milan Verona, Matt. This was really a story about the two forwards. When it really came down to it, Pulisic and obviously Christopher Nkunku. I want to kind of sit more on the talk of Nkunku for this one because I feel like we've had more time to digest this a little bit. I don't want to spend too much time on the game itself. So for me with Nkunku, Matt, like we were saying on the live
Mhm.
stream, we don't care how the goals went behind in the back of the net. It's the fact that they went in. We both like that he was able to take the penalty and step up there. Still don't really know truly what was going if Pulisic is still the designated taker, because obviously Leao took over and then the injuries and all that stuff. Not really sure what happened there, but it did kind of seem like they gave it to Nkunku. Um, After the goals is what I found most interesting when he almost had the assist to RLC. He looked so much more comfortable as a player, more free roaming, confident on the ball. And when Nkunku's at his best, it's not really just the scoring, it's his ability to distribute. And we saw some of that quality. What did you really take away from Nkunku's performance in terms of, the complete offensive game that he's capable of bringing?
Yeah, I mean, I think seeing him have a smile, which was a great thing. I think that's kind of the mark of like a player that's obviously like maybe enjoying his football a little bit in that moment. And we all know that player confidence, player performance is a lot of times predicated on whether or not you produce a goal or an assist. Speaking purely on the attacking side of things, right? Like if you go X amount of games without a goal, it can obviously really weigh on you, and it can really be such a negative effect where it really kind of takes its toll and it carries over into other aspects of your game. And obviously, we know the psychological part of playing this game is very, very prevalent and important to discuss. And I think that's kind of what we saw with Nkunku. I think what I mentioned in the live, and I'm just going to reiterate it, was I think that the fact that this is a good environment for players, I think is key, because even when Santi was struggling, right, there was still that sort of that boost that he maybe could get from the fan base, right, where maybe we didn't have it in years past, right, because of the results being very negative or us not playing well. And obviously the fans can take it out on certain players. And with Nkunku, obviously we saw that, right? We from what I mostly saw about Nkunku, and the criticism was fair. It wasn't hatred. It was just, hey, this guy cost a lot of money. We expect him to do more than what he has already, which I don't think is unreasonable to say, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that he was able to get 2 goals and 2 go into the back of the net in different fashions, they don't have to be sexy all the time. Pulisic doesn't have always the sexiest goals or the finishes, right? He sometimes is in the right place at the right time, gets a tap in, and they all look the same on the score sheet, right? Where you're like, oh, goal, minute marker. And, I think that's kind of the biggest takeaway for me about Nkunku is he got those 2 goals in league play, right? He had the assist against Sassuolo. He's growing in confidence, you feel, right? And obviously we have to wait and see if this is some sort of a launching off point for him.
Right.
But I do think that it's a great way for him to cap off a difficult, challenging 2025 and maybe try to ride this momentum going into the new year, because Cagliari, which we're going to talk about, that's an opponent that our attacking players and we as a team should feast on, right? You look to those games and it's okay, fine, he got 2. Maybe he gets another one. Maybe he gets a goal and an assist, and now all of a sudden you're feeling good about yourself. So this is the right moment for him, I think, to have the 2 goals that he did on the weekend, because I think it's a really good opportunity with the opponents we have coming up, or at least in the next week, for him to kind of build off that. It's not like a difficult opponent where maybe he's going to be finding space difficult to drum up or whatever. So that's kind of how I feel.
Yeah, I think a lot of the big things with him is spacing, as you mentioned, because where does he fit in? How does he play off of Pulisic? How does he play off of Leao? And that was something I kind of highlighted yesterday on Stefano's podcast, and the same thing we were discussing on the live. The space isn't really afforded to him because of the tactical fit with the certain players that he's with. Because again, we have mentioned there was only really one true striker on the squad with Santi Jimenez, and it's not the same thing when it's him and Pulisic on the pitch. They're both very clearly not strikers, and Nkunku, out of the 2 players, is probably more likened to be that striker in that formation, that setup, because of his qualities, whereas Pulisic is obviously very different in terms of stature, but his positioning is phenomenal. And to your point as well, with just the way the goals were scored, again, I know it sounds so dumb. I was really, really a big fan and happy of how he scored that second goal, because even the spill was marginal, wasn't that big. His ability to pounce and recognize almost immediately of the issue of that spill, and to just tap it in. And, again, at that point, seeing 1 go in is a nice confidence boost. To get 2, piggybacking off of the assist against Sassuolo, even though that was a poor result for Milan, that to me is what kind of speaks volumes of, to your point, is this a launching pad now? Because 3 goal contributions in back-to-back matches doesn't really matter the opponents. Sassuolo, obviously very respectable in that regard. Verona is obviously in the relegation zone.
Mm-hmm.
When you have somebody who had been struggling like this, and to your point, we hadn't seen Santi Jimenez get that goal and then go from there, launching point, because that never really came in the league. For Nkunku now, we've actually kind of seen a couple of decent performances. This one was clearly his best, man of the match. I am encouraged slightly by it. To me, it's, again, to what you're alluding to. Can you do it again? Can you do it against Cagliari, where Pulisic doesn't seem to be 100%? It looks like Nkunku will likely be starting again once we get in the Cagliari preview because of Leao's condition. Does he take the bull by the horns? Does he have the ability of picking up the 3 points here, where it's slowly setting up, Matt? I'm not saying it's the same thing. It is eerily similar to what happened in Allegri's first Scudetto and season with Milan, where there isn't this 20, 25 goal scorer here. You get 3 players with 14 goals, where it was Zlatan, Pato, and Robinho, where, hey, Pulisic, Leao, they've been great. They've been contributing. Doesn't look like they're either going to be fully healthy for the entire season, because we're nearly at the halfway point. Is Nkunku that third cog that you could see that happens at, Inter right now with Boni? is he able to get that level of production that puts Milan in a much better space? Because Santi's not going to be back to February. Leao is dealing with a lingering issue. Pulisic still doesn't seem like he's 100%. And Füllkrug is going to be able to come off the bench in this one. Nkunku really has a lot on his plate in terms of carrying for Milan. And not to say like he has to put that all on his shoulders, but the club is kind of not heavily, the club is somewhat reliant on him to step up. Like he has to.
It's a good thing and a bad thing,
yeah.
right? The way you look at it, because if a player is down on confidence, sometimes have to constantly, okay, you're the next guy out there. And if you obviously don't score a goal, everyone's going to say, well, you're the guy starting in this game. We need you to do something and you're not doing anything. And it's directly impacting our ability to get results, right? So I think, as I always mention, it can be a blessing and a curse to have injuries, because it forces you to play players that maybe weren't getting a lot of burn early on. Like Nkunku came in late, so he was still trying to get up to match fitness. And then when you had guys like Pulisic, Rafa, and Santi kind of ahead of him, on top of that, okay, now it's a player that when he does play, maybe he's not able to build consistency and form. And what happens? The next game, he's on the bench. And coming in off the bench versus starting a game have two entirely different results and outcomes sometimes. So I think, for better or for worse, the injuries have forced Christopher Nkunku to play, and hopefully with the brace that he scored on the weekend, to push through that adversity, push through those challenges of the early season, and now grow from it, knowing that, hey, I'm the guy. Like, they're bringing in Füllkrug, they're going to get guys back, but this is a team that is going to have injuries that they have to deal with. I'm going to get opportunity to play, prove myself and play and score like I did on the weekend. And that should build some positivity and reassurance within you, knowing that, okay, well, when everyone comes back, they have 4 or 5 guys in my area. When am I going to play? What's my status here? I'm basically forced to produce with the little minutes I get. That's not the case here. He's playing 80, 90 minutes on a regular basis now because of our situation. So we're going to really be able to see if this is a player that was worth something close to what was shelled out for him in the summer.
I think also a good point too to mention, when those opportunities arise, it actually helps someone like Rafael Leao not having to rush back or feeling like he has to rush back because they need production sorely, and it was only primarily coming from 2 players. And again, too, now what we realize, and this one's a little bit of a quicker turnaround because they had 10 days off and they play on a Friday. But this right here, from here on out, and I know we're kind of beating a dead horse with this, is Milan are truly going to be playing once a week. And sure, there'll be those midweek games. But now I think we're going to be able to see them after full training sessions, not have to worry about juggling other competitions, where everyone is solely focused on one objective. There's maybe 1 or 2 more windows in terms of international play, and then players getting ready for the World Cup. We're really seeing, hopefully, them being in a full throttle force. And again, they have to do the business in January in terms of the center back positions, because they can't move forward with that group at the back there. It's just not possible. There's still going to be, knock on wood, hopefully no severe injuries, but there will be guys who will likely pick up something with the other 20 somewhat games left in the season. But if Nkunku, again, my expectations of him meeting, to what your point was, of that fee within season 1, I doubt it at this point with the formation and his adaptability and where they're at in the season. But if he could just be someone to get over 10 goal contributions the rest of the way for the entire season, I think it's salvaged the season for him, considering where he was. He needs to do that. He absolutely needs to produce. And then
You'd
obviously,
be surprised though, like,
go ahead.
Not to cut you off, but
No, you're good.
I mean, it doesn't take too much, as far as you don't need to play consistently great for 38 match days.
Correct.
If we're having a conversation come March, April, we're like, he's on fine form. Like, he's won us some games. He's gotten us a key assist or a key goal from a position, and it resulted in us getting a victory. People will latch on to that. Hey, remember Nkunku got us 3 points against this team when we had no business getting it, because he scored 1 or 2 goals, or he was able to make something happen from nothing, and kind of flash back to some of his prime better days at Leipzig and in spurts at Chelsea. People will forget. If he lends a hand in Milan getting key results in the second half of the season that result in a Scudetto, people are going to say this guy broke through and he overcame a lot,
and
a lot
nobody
of
cares about the
expectation
fee
and pressure, and he was able to get us to where we want it to be. And we say this all the time, and I always say this about any single sport. Fees are only relevant if the player is a flop and doesn't produce. We see this all the time in baseball too. Guy has a horrible regular season. He comes back and he gives you a couple key starts, or he has a couple great at-bats or games in the postseason. You win a World Series, you win a NBA championship, you win a Super Bowl, and everyone's like, okay, like all's forgotten. Like he helped us get
Yeah.
there.
How much were we
I
paying
think
Nathan
that's
Eovaldi? No one
right.
remembers.
John
He's
Lackey.
incredible.
John Lackey, if you're a Red Sox fan or a baseball fan, like he had a horrible contract. Everyone was criticizing him. Goes into the postseason in 2013 and was dominant. And everyone was like, okay, thanks for helping us get a World Series ring.
Pete Alonso in his second to last season with the Mets, he did absolutely.
Things can change quickly, guys. Like things can change quickly. And I'm hoping that's what it is with Nkunku, because we've always mentioned, and we want to keep saying this because I know there's going to be people in the comments saying, well, you guys were criticizing him. He scored 2 goals. We've never disputed that he's a good player and he's got good qualities.
That's literally the main thing we've said.
we've always, I feel like we have to keep saying it because people will contort and twist and take clips and take things out of context, right? Which is what people do nowadays. We like the player. The fit was questionable. I'm hoping that this batch of games and these opportunities and the constant training, and now that he's finally like at 100% fitness, is able to adapt and integrate and show that he does belong in this team and he can play within this system, which is not ideal for him when we got him.
Yeah. And kind of speaking on that, I got to be honest with you. After rewatching again the second half, because I was kind of dozing off in the first, like I was awake for it, but you know, when your brain is not fully functioning, I went back to go see that second half. I was just curious to see the appearances from Arden Yashari and those types of midfielders that were sub on. To me, I think that's like the big X factor. And I know we're talking about the attackers. That's the big question mark. We're thin at the back. For me, it's sort of, and I was talking to Stefano about this yesterday, if Luka Modric is afforded to be subbed off and the confidence grows ever so more within Arden Yashari, still, I don't truly know what the ceiling is. I still like what I see in the cameo appearances that he has. You know, it was around 20, 25 minutes in this one against Verona. It's hard to kind of judge players off of that. And you can watch players in pockets and, you know, pay attention to singular ones throughout the match, especially in a 3-0 where, you know, the game is pretty much sealed up against a side like this. I always like to focus on individuals throughout the match because you could do that if you watch enough over time. What is kind of the ceiling there? What is he a ceiling raiser for this? Because I see a lot of people applauding the performances when he comes on. I thought he was fine. Nothing like, oh my God, like my jaw is dropping from it. And it's not even anti-Ashadi or anything with that. The thing I love most about him and what I see and read, and we've heard this all the time, and it's not even about the quality. They literally say like this guy is the best leader and one of the best intangible type players that they've ever been around. And you hear terms tossed out all the time in American sports, and I know you know this one, of a high floor guy. And a high floor player, for those who don't know, is somebody that even at their worst, they're still giving you something of value.
Equivalent of probably our team.
If they end up being the worst version of themselves, right, that's still productive. For Olivier Giroud, can he press well? No. Is he able to really distribute, hold up the ball well at times? Probably not. But at worst, he's still going to give you goals, and that's a pretty good thing. With Arden Yashari, it seems like he's going to bring intensity. He's going to be able to press hard. There is not somebody that's going to be quitting on his team. And listen, people don't want to hear that when you pony up all that money like they did for him. But to have someone like that at that age, and hear guys like Allegri and all these other players sort of alluding to that, like, this guy's phenomenal. Like, when we're in training, when we're trying to elevate us as a group, he's one of those guys that is willing to pick up everybody else. It's to say if they are, you know, dropping off mentally a little bit, physically, you know, Modric's legs are a little tired. You bring on this guy, and it's just sort of this jolt of energy that you can't really describe on a level because it's intangible. I think what he brings, from what I've seen so far, is somebody that I feel a lot calmer when I see him on the field, because you know at the very least that this guy is going to be giving his all. He doesn't seem to make stupid mistakes. Sure, there's some inconsistencies. There's adaptation to Serie A, his teammates. I don't know. Again, I've said this. What if he exceeds expectations? What if one of these guys that they get in signing wise is taking it to another level? Because we've seen good production from Richie, Modric, Rabiot. We know what we're getting from them, Matt. But when you have someone like Yashari paid for that fee, you think, wow, like, is this actually someone that Milan got for a price that is deemed high, but the 35 million is what happened with Enzo Fernandez at Benfica, for example, where, oh, this guy could be good, he's talented, and they get him, and then in the 6 months or when he gets consistent playing time, you're like, he's actually way better than we thought he would be. I just wonder if that is potentially the case with Yashadi. Is there stuff that you've seen with him or in pockets or in moments throughout his appearances that say to yourself, this is a really good player that you could see, like, what Leao was in his first year, the goal against Fiorentina, you're like, wow, that was jaw-dropping ability. What more can he give us? Have you gotten that from Yashadi at all? Or are you more of like, okay, like I've seen some stuff. I'd rather wait.
It's a bit of a wait and see for me. I don't want to get too high, too low because I think he obviously
Mhm.
had the injury setback that, kind of derailed him a little bit from maybe having the hot, quick start and big impact that he hoped and us as fans would have hoped based on the fee that was shelled out for him. The game against Lazio in the cup where he came in, he started, and he wasn't spectacular, but there were pockets, there were glimpses, there were little moments of like, okay, I could see why they invested in this guy. Like I could see what they see in him, right? And I think now it's a matter of integration, getting up to certain match speed, right? Because people will look and say, well, he cost this much money, we expect more. And that's all fair and valid, right? And I said the same thing in my reel on Instagram saying,
Hmm.
aside from a couple players, the market's been a failure. Not necessarily because I don't think the player can grow in time, but as far as the impact we've received from
Right,
them
right. Yeah.
was the next to nothing, right? Athakame could be a player that next year just takes off, or second half of the season, Yashari takes off, and now all of a sudden, okay, like we didn't get the first half of him, but the second half of the season, you could see why we wanted him, and that's what I see with Yashari, and that's what I'm hoping is the case. I'm hoping that it's a similar situation to when we had Sandro Tonali came in, where
Right, right.
we were so hyped for the player, obviously for different reasons, right? This isn't like a like for like as far as the affinity for the club and
Right,
attachment
right.
there. But year two is when like you saw, okay, like that's
Yeah.
Sandro Tonali. That's
Year
the type
year
of
one
player.
was rough.
Year one was rough, and people were like, maybe we shouldn't even buy this guy because which I thought
You're
was
insane.
insane
Yeah.
to me
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
always bought into the potential and the quality.
Yeah. It
And
was
then you
ridiculous.
saw it shine through, and he was a fundamental part of why we were a Scudetto winner. So
Absolutely.
that's what I feel like
Literally
with
against Verona. And when he had the 2 assists, I believe. Uh or he was scored a goal in that one. But the Verona match and Lazio, where you were like, that guy's effort, energy, that's where it comes in. I hope to see more of Yashani, but I was making the point to Stefano yesterday on the podcast as much as like I think him and Richie could be X factors with this, you just wonder how much time they're going to be afforded with once a week. Modric getting proper rest, Rabiot obviously being such a massive cog in this entire thing. And I thought Rabiot was the best player outside of Nkunku against Verona. I just, again, he's been fantastic. I really have loved Rabiot this season. I've always known he's been a solid player, but this from what I've seen, this is really just a fantastic job by him. And Milan have gotten him right in the peak of his career, especially with Serie A and the physicality within the league itself. I've just been so impressed by him. So that was a good appearance. And Pulisic, again, just to wrap a bow on this match and him, listen, Lautaro got his goal against Atalanta. Inter finally won a match against a relatively big opponent this season. So they're in first place. Just the level of production in the limited amount of time is genuinely jaw-dropping from Pulisic. Just when he scores the goal right at the end of the first half against Verona, weak foot finish, right place, right time, as it's pretty much seemed the entire season for him. The ability to do this and only be 1 goal behind Lautaro Martinez in half the time played is one of the most jaw-dropping stats. 50% conversion rate, not a striker, not even playing with the best teammates off of him in order to get this production. What he is doing, just forget the past 3 seasons, right? What he is doing this season alone, Christian Pulisic is having his magnum opus, because to me, what he's been able to hone at this point in his career, where physically he might not be well, but mentally being able to be in the right place at the right time, is showing the actual quality of this player and why he is the greatest U.S. men's national team product to ever exist. And I don't even think it's close. Respect to Landon Donovan, Tim Howard, Clint Dempsey. Pulisic is showing levels that no other player that the U.S. has produced. So for me, this is just another example of it. The production's off the charts, Matt. Truly, I can't remember a goal contribution of this level since Zlatan in his final year at Milan, where you're like, almost every single time he steps on the pitch, you think he's going to score or have the ability to do so. So what are your thoughts really quick on just Pulisic's season and how he's been able to take off for Milan?
You just mentioned, high floor, and I think that he's the epitome of a high floor player. I think that even in matches where Milan aren't winning, or it's a draw, or they get a result that they are probably disappointed with, I don't think you can really look to many Pulisic performances since he's been here and be like, oh yeah, like he was awful, he was terrible, like he missed 3-4 chances. There was a couple chances. There was one game this year where I think he had a clear-cut chance to, I think, win the game for Milan. Like it would have been a
It
match-winning
was
goal,
against
and
Parma.
he
Yeah.
put it wide. Yeah, like I think that's like, again, there's not many moments where you could look to Pulisic and say, man, he was terrible today. Like he didn't bring you anything. And it sounds sad to have to say this, because I think we as fans and us watching the sport expect this as a bare minimum requirement, a prerequisite for this sport and for professionalism and doing what they do, is effort. Like
Yeah.
you're getting paid millions. If you're healthy, I want to see you running after the ball. I want to see you pressing. I want to see you trying to do something. I don't want you to see you walking around. Like Pulisic, if he's not scoring a goal, or providing an assist, he's trying to do things off the ball to get the ball back.
Yeah.
He's trying to create for somebody else. He's trying to maybe occupy space to maybe open up a lane for somebody else. Like he is going to do something throughout the course of a 90-minute match that helps you win a game, helps you get to where you want to be. And I think that's the way I look at Pulisic. Now, the fact that he's able to compile goals the way he has, despite not being like this imposing player physically, being a player that's been healthy consistently. Like he's played games and people will say, well, he's played in these games. Like he hasn't been injury prone. He's not injury prone, but he's playing through a lot of injuries. So this is also a player that is producing the goals and assists and the numbers we've seen over 3 years, despite not being always 100%. But the fact that he's able to step out on the pitch, like in the Torino game, when we absolutely needed to have those games and we had nobody else to come off the bench, and he gives you 2 goals to win the game,
Almost
3
had a hat
points
trick
versus 1 from seemingly nothing. That's the mark of an MVP, in my opinion, is he does everything else intangibly as a player that's great for the changing room, all these sorts of things. You hear a lot of great, praise from him, and then he's getting the goals and production on top of it, the consistent performances, the consistency. I also can't even sometimes fathom from a player like Pulisic, where I want to know what the difference is in points and like goals that we score in a match with him versus without him. And the amount of points he himself has helped Milan win since he's been a Milan player. I want to know those numbers, and I'm going to work on that maybe as like a little side project. But there's a lot of games where we simply won because of him. And that's tremendous.
But that's what I was saying in the same vein with Leao too, that they're actually like taking turns of winning matches for Milan. And oddly enough, the only time that they both had stinkers was that match against Juve, where Pulisic skies the penalty and Leao, tough angles, missed a couple shots. And in that one, you were both like, come on, guys. But that
Yeah,
even if that's a negative moment, to me, it's sort of like these guys are carrying and winning us games. Like Leao against Fiorentina, for example. He won us that. Just to your same point with Pulisic against Torino is the best example. All those sort of moments are the reason why Leao against Roma, he gets the game-winning assist where he did such a great job of ball carrying. And again, Pulisic is the difference to getting the assist to Salamakers against Napoli.
yeah.
There have just been so many moments for these two players that I just really hope that they both can manage to get on the pitch at the same time and bring a level of production that is such high quality that makes everything easier for the squad. And I think that's possible. So knock on wood that they're going to be able to do that. Just a real quick thing, because there's some rumors that have been floating out, and I think this is all just kind of BS in my opinion. I don't think Milan are going to be selling Nkunku, especially with the injury to Santi Jimenez. And again, the reports are basically saying Fenerbahce have been interested in Nkunku. They're kind of funny connections because of Dominic Tedesco used to manage him at RB Leipzig as the manager at Fenerbahce. Obviously, he has struggled at Milan so far this season. So they're just sort of doing this thing where it's like, oh, if Milan are able to make a profit on the deal, if they're able to get 35, 37 million back their way, they would be considering that. But it doesn't seem like Nkunku is willing to leave already because he's just starting to do well. I think this is BS. I think it's nonsense. I don't think Nkunku leaves Milan in the middle of the season. If he were to leave, if he does poorly the rest of the way, I definitely could see him leaving in June. However, makes no sense. The guy's just starting to produce. Milan have injuries to Leao, to Santi Jimenez. They're in contention for the Scudetto. This makes no sense unless, Matt, they get a Godfather offer where they can't refuse it. So, in my opinion, Christopher Nkunku won't be sold to Fenerbahce at all. I would be stunned if that were to happen. I think this is more BS rumors. If you see anything with Milan being active in the market in January, it's for a defender. It's not for selling off a player like this.
Yeah, I didn't really buy this. I mean, I didn't completely rule it out because, as mentioned on a couple previous episodes, we saw what happened last January where they weren't afraid to sell Morata. Granted, the money's not the same, but the contract was pretty lofty, right? Morata also had to agree to a move. And, you
Yep.
know, I looked at this and I look at how players typically, you know, react to certain things, right? And adversity. And I think that's a very important thing. And if you also look at with players where, on one hand, same thing with Santi, where people said, sell him, he should want to leave. But there is something about me as a fan that really admires and appreciates a player that wants to stick it out and wants to prove
Right.
himself
I agree.
instead of taking the easy way out and saying, well, it's not ideal. I can't play for Milan. Let me go somewhere else into hiding, maybe a lesser league, a lesser team.
Or you
Where I
just
can be
do nothing
comfortable.
for multiple years, like Divock
Correct.
Origi.
Right. Just kind of sit there and be one of those types. There is something admirable about that. And I'm
I
not
agree.
saying that we all know, Nkunku, what's going on with him internally. Like we haven't really heard too much comments from him, like when he was struggling. And,
Right.
we got some words from him after the brace, but we didn't really hear too much talking, right? We didn't hear too much in the media, too much on social media, right? So I think that as fans, when a player like really wants to commit and really wants to do well in this shirt, I think we do owe it to them to an extent because they
Right.
haven't given us any reason other than maybe not playing to a level we expect to
Right.
criticize and hate in such a way. There's players that come here and at the first opportunity, they're leaving for the big bag, big money.
Yeah.
Thanks. Have a nice day. Then
You
there's
know
the
when
players that want to stay here. They want to play here. Santi could have said, they don't want me. I'm leaving. I'm gone. But there's something about that inner challenge and that hunger of like, I can play at Milan. I can be a top player here. I can
yeah.
produce. And
Tomori does the same thing.
Amori's the same thing. I think with Nkunku, the money, the going from Chelsea and going to Milan and struggling, if he left 6 months in, I think people would have had a lot to say about him. Like, okay, when the going got tough, he ran.
Yeah, his career's
Ran away from
over.
the problem.
At the top level, yeah.
And this is a guy that's 27. He's not 32, 33, where like that's how I feel about it. So I'm happy for him to stay, but he also still needs to produce. Like at the end of the day, you're still playing for a club like Milan. We can't fall too in love with, hey, I'm just happy to be at Milan. It's a big club. We still need to produce, right? Like that's what comes with the territory of putting on that shirt.
Yeah. Not everybody's like Christoph Piontek, who was in Milan for 2 months, is already talking about Barcelona and where he would be moving up a step in his
Yeah,
career
like
and answering questions like that. For people who don't remember that, he was doing that. It was insane. So speaking of like Nkunku opportunities, he's going to get another one on Friday against Cagliari
yeah,
because of Rafael Leao's condition. So just to update a couple of people in case you did not see or hear, Leao continued working with the group this session. He is still having some issues with acceleration. It doesn't really sound like he will be starting or if he will play at all this Friday. Gabbia is continuing his therapy, so he is still recovering. So expect to see Conny de Winter there. Again, Nkunku, Pulisic feels like the starting duo. Nicholas Füllkrug will be an option for Milan since it will be the new year by the time this match is played. Listen, talk about one of the most annoying fixtures for Milan in recent years. I had mentioned to Stefano of that ill-fated day where Milan could have finally qualified for the Champions League after Cagliari successfully fended off relegation, and we still drew to them 0-0. So last year, this one was crazy. Away fixture, Francesco Camarda started that one. I don't know if it triggers anyone's memory whatsoever. Ended up finishing a 3-3 game. Just absolutely chaotic, just like what last season was as a whole. 3 points here. This will be really difficult to get the 3 points. So Cagliari away, not easy. Davide Nicola is a really difficult manager to go up against because he is the Sean Dyche of Serie A, where he's just there to get shit-housed points, do any and everything to prevent goals and leak out wins any way you can. Milan, once again, have been struggling against sides like this. Maybe they start to get in a groove now. They're fresher because of what we saw with like Modric and all that. More options dynamically off the bench. I was saying to Stefano yesterday, if Milan are going to have anything in terms of goals, I think dead ball opportunities, once again, is where it's going to have to come from. Eager to see Füllkrug off the bench in terms of can he give them something? It's really what I'm like trying to hope and look forward to. Is Füllkrug an option off the bench to just stay in the final third, be a threat in the 18-yard area, and poach on something? That's what I'm hoping from him at some point in this season. But yeah, Milan have to get the 3 points. While you kind of give me your summarization of what you think is supposed to be going on this Friday, you let me know while I pull up what the other fixtures in Serie A are as it pertains to Milan and points being dropped. So go ahead.
Sure. You can't follow up a 3-0 win against Verona and drop a stinker, lay an egg. You can't do it. And I think, and especially to start 2026, like you have to show that you're a bully team and you're a team that can handle these opposition. And I feel that, that was a whole narrative around Milan prior to the Verona game was they can't handle the provincial teams. They can't handle these teams that are more than willing to just kind of sit back and let you have the ball. And they want to just get a draw and make it ugly and be a thorn in your side. I think that win helped him overcome something psychologically and mentally. We're like, okay, like we can not only handle these teams, we can actually beat them comfortably. And when you have that result that they have, where the first 30 or so minutes weren't that great against Verona. Like I was watching the game, I was early start, and I was like, this is boring, man. Like they can't do anything. It's the same old story with this team. And then they finally get the Pulisic goal, and it's like, okay, let's go for one more. Let's go for 2 more. And then the game you realize was pretty simple at that point. Verona didn't have anything to offer going forward. Milan were just staying organized.
Yeah.
And here you go, a 3-0 clean sheet win at home. Like, oh, it's that easy, right? They can do it. So that's how I feel with this game is, they're gonna get their opportunities. Players like Modric, players like Pulisic, these guys are too good to not be in positions to make an impact and to do something. Solid makers, like these guys are going to do something to create chances. Someone's got to get on the end of it. It's 1 or 2 goals, and then away you go. It doesn't have to be 30 chances on target. We saw last year, right, where it was, I think it was actually this fixture, if I'm correct, where they had 27, 28 chances, and they had no goals or 1 goal, and it was a tie, right? So it's like, come on, you should beat these teams up. The teams that are going to be vying for the Scudetto with you, they beat these teams up.
They had 16 shots, 7 on target last year.
And they couldn't beat them.
Well, they
So,
can see they gave up 13 shots and 6 on
like,
target.
just that
So,
shows you how bad they were defensively too, to give
oh,
up that many
horrible.
shots to a team
Even
like
even in the
Cagliari.
second game as well, just to even piggyback off of your points here, 24 total shots, 11 on target, 2.75 xG. The game ended in a 1-1 draw.
Like that, come on. Like,
But it was
so
funny because the previous 3 games, Milan had scored 3, 4, and 5 against them. So they're creating the chances and all of that. We'll
last year
see.
was a that didn't happen last year. That season was a mess. Like,
So we'll see what ends up happening. I think this would be a really fun fixture to start off with the 3 points, and just really quickly go through some of the other matches that the competitors for the Scudetto and top 4 will be having are as follows: Juve against Lecce. Obviously, Juve should be primed to win that one. Relatively big one here. Gasperini, first time facing off against Atalanta. They play Roma. 6:30 a.m. wake up call for a good Napolitan friends and Laziali. They'll be facing off against each other at 6:30 in the morning. Fascinating fixture by Serie A. That is going to put people to sleep. Conte versus this Sarri team. Oh my God. And then Inter versus Bologna to finish off the week. So
yeah.
Again, with some of those fixtures, not easy exactly for some of these competitors.
Yeah.
Milan have to pounce. This is, again, that little gap. Are they able to get the 3 points and try and distance themselves because of how good they were against the top sides? That's what I'm hoping for. Predictions as they go. I think I had a 1-0 on Stefano's stream. I'm going to stick to it. But I will say that Nkunku gets actually another goal. So I'll just be piggybacking off of him. 1-0 victory for Milan. They get the 3 points. But again, would not be shocked if they drop on the road here. What are your thoughts and predictions for this?
I'm gonna go 2-0 Milan.
Okay.
I'm going to go Pavlovic goal from a header.
Okay.
I'm gonna be
Okay.
very specific.
Dead ball opportunity. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sticking with that theme. And I'm going to say I'll go Nkunku too. I'll
Okay.
ride that wave.
Okay. Watch it just be
I wanted to go
foolproof.
I wanted to go Modric, but I don't know.
His shot, by the way, again, just to give him praise, we did it
Yeah,
on the live and stuff. And the left-footed shot when Nkunku scored on the tap-in off of
yeah,
that was such a great shot by Modric. It was actually
yeah.
unbelievable. The way Milan were moving the ball in the second half was great. So we'll see what ends up happening there. Want to keep this pretty short and sweet for the final podcast. Everybody go spend time with your family, friends. Enjoy the holidays. It's been a long year. We
Stay
appreciate
safe
every
too.
single one of you that have supported us along the way. 2026 is going to have big things for us and Milan. Every single guest that we had on this year, Stefano, both Stefanos, Steph Sartori, Ali, Fabio, Stevie P, me, Marco, Lex, Sharma, Sean McIntosh, Nick Diani. I know there's other names that I'm probably forgetting at this point in time, but there have just been so many
Enrico.
of you that what? Which one? Who?
It said Enrico.
Oh, Enrico. Yes, yeah, Enrico as well. Sorry, the delay is just still so funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, Enrico is just fantastic as well. He's back now, so you guys obviously are English speakers. You go and check it out over there, and obviously Kush, because Kush has just been such a great guy. We're sending him prayers, hoping everything is going to be okay. He's had a really, roller coaster ride of a year. Such a great guy, genuinely, and we appreciate all the people who pay for the memberships and just donate money to us. People like Anthony LaFleur, Sabrina Belmonte, John Simile. There's just like so many other people. I know Zion's always a common commenter. Diego Ferrara. There's just so many different people. I'm just rattling these off the top of my head, so I apologize if I forget some people in that. But we greatly appreciate everybody that comes in here, interacts with us, is very respectful, supports us, and supports all the other decent people that create Milan content. So it's just been a great ride. We hope to grow even more next year and see more Milanisti success. So again, follow us everywhere at That Milan Pod. Try and get us to 7,000 subscribers by the end of tomorrow. Tell your friends, whoever, even if they like Milan, don't like Milan. Again, 5 stars, Apple, Spotify, everywhere else. Go follow us on TikTok. Go follow Matt on Instagram at Matt underscore
I'm almost at
Santos.
200 followers. Help me get there before the new year.
200. Good number there. Almost 700, I think, for the pod account. We've really just been popping off. We've had really good content and growth on there. So we're really satisfied with the growth so far. And again, Twitter accounts at Matt_Santangelo, at Martino Pucci. Go follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Martino Puccio. So again, guys, we really appreciate it. Thank you once again to Stinker for all the thumbnails. And here's to a great 2026. Take care.